What up, BookTube? Chelsea's Reads here. So we're yet another month into 2020. We're another month closer to 2020 ending. Woot woot there. Today was actually the first day of school for me as a teacher, so it was really interesting seeing the new normal and all that entailed. But enough about that. It's the end of August. We're going to talk about what we read this month. And I didn't think it was too much, but now that I'm looking at like the spread, it was a fairly decent amount of books. So let's begin. The first book I read this month was The Merciless by Danielle Vega. I'm going to try to bring that closer. There you go. Yep, The Merciless. And this book is about a girl named Sophia Flores. She ends up moving to town, I believe. This was like the very beginning of the month that I read this, and I read it like in one sitting because it was like that easy. It's not very thick, and it was really quick to get through. But so Sophia Flores becomes friends with the popular girls in school, primarily Riley, and Riley has it out for this girl named Brooklyn in their school. So these girls, the popular girls, it's Riley, Alexis, and I don't remember the other one's name, but they are all fairly religious. They tell Sophia, to follow them. They're close to God. They baptize her in a bathtub, or in the bathroom sink, and they actually kidnap Brooklyn, and they're going to perform an exorcism on her because they feel like she is being controlled by a demon, and they are the ones that are going to save her. But it ends up just being torture in the end, and Sophia obviously is very uncomfortable with this. I could best describe this book as Mean Girls mixed with The Craft, and I think that's the best way to describe it. I don't really have much more to say about it. It was not what I was expecting. I did enjoy it. I ended up giving it 4 stars, I think, because it was pretty graphic, bloody, and disgusting, and it didn't hold back. I will say that the weakest parts of this book are in characterization, though. The characters all have these predetermined relationships that we don't really get to explore too much. And it's such a freight train of a book, like everything's happening so quickly that we really don't get to know anybody too well, and you don't get to attach to anybody. But other than that, if you're into like horror, spooky, bad girl stuff, I would definitely recommend this one. The next book that I read this month is Beautiful Bastard. It is by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren is actually 2 people, 2 friends. One's named Christina, one's named Lauren. They put their names together, and they are the writing team of Christina Lauren. It's my understanding that Beautiful Bastard started off as Twilight fan fiction. It can join the club. It is about Chloe Mills, who is a secretary at this advertising firm for Bennett Ryan, and he is a beautiful bastard. This is another one that I read super quick. I think I read The Merciless, and then the next day I read Beautiful Bastard. It's not very long. It is your typical romantic trash. A lot of like hooking up, not a lot of plot. And I know it was kind of fun. Their romance is kind of fun. She wants to get farther in the company, but she feels uncomfortable doing so because he's her boss and they have this relationship. So she actually tries to break away and go to another firm, but he's not having it because, he's in love with her. This is another quick one. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's not BDSM at all. It's just a very raunchy romance, but I think it was fun, and I definitely recommend it. It was another 4-star read for me. Next up, I read The Tragedy of the Sith's Revenge. It is by Ian Dozier. This is the last of the prequel trilogy. It is the Sith's Revenge of the Sith, written in Shakespearean dialogue. It is written as a play with all your cast of characters. It's written in iambic pentameter, except for those that are purposely not in iambic pentameter. I read the first 2 prequel books last month. Whoops, and I dropped it. I'm trying to read these along with the novelizations of the Star Wars books. So last month I read the Revenge of the Sith. This one's the Sith's Revenge, so it's like throwing me off. So this month I picked up this copy of the Shakespeare adaptation. Much like the first two, it's a lot of fun. It's very in-depth and well-researched, and it's not one, like, as short as it is, it's not really one that you can just read. It takes some time to really soak in that language and appreciate the work that was into it. But it was another 4-star read. Next we have, what's probably my favorite book that I read this month is Jim Henson's The Labyrinth. It is adapted by A.C.H. Smith. So for those who don't know, The Labyrinth is a Jim Henson movie made in the 80s starring David Bowie and what is her name? Jennifer Connelly. I was like drawing a blank. I kept saying like Sarah, that's her character's name. So the novelization of The Labyrinth has been long out of print until they came out with these collector's editions. I believe this is a collector's or the archive edition, whatever it is. There's one for the Dark Crystal as well. And it's truly a delight for fans. Not only does it expand on what we already saw in the movie, there's a couple of scenes that are not in the movie that are in this that just help the characterization. And the absolute best part, I have to crack it open and show you guys, is the back. So you get these wonderful character sketches from the archives, and that's from Brian Froud. And you also get these notes that are from Jim Henson about different research that he did and his different plans for how the movie developed. And it is absolutely delightful. If you're a huge fan of Labyrinth, I cannot recommend this enough. It was easily 5 stars. The ending hit a little bit harder in this one because it's not that happy. There's no dance party like there is at the end of the movie. So it hit a lot harder, especially in the metaphor of growing up and letting go of your childhood fantasies. And I really just appreciate that as someone who picked up this book, already being familiar with the movie. This next book that I read, I actually buddy read with my cousin as part of our book club. It is Reflection. It's by Elizabeth Lim. It is part of the Disney Twisted Tales series. The Twisted Tales series takes popular Disney movies and asks what-if questions. For this one, it's what if Mulan had to travel to the underworld? So following the events of the Mulan movie, Shang actually is mortally wounded against the Huns when they're in the mountains, feeling guilty that she's the one who caused him to die. Mulan travels to the underworld to save his spirit. What I really appreciate about this one is just how rich in Chinese lore it was. So she meets King Yama. She has to go through Diyu, and you kind of learn more about what the Chinese feel about the afterlife and how what their beliefs are on what happens after you pass away. And I thought that was really neat to learn. There was a lot of really cool Chinese superstition that I learned in here. I think Elizabeth Lim did a great job by remaining true to the original characters and also her own characters that she developed. I think it all just worked really well. I still only give this one 3.5 stars because the middle was a little bit weak. It's not that even long of a book, and it did feel a little repetitive and dragged a little bit in the middle there. But overall, out of all the Twisted Tales, and these do not have to be read in order, this one was definitely the strongest one. For this next read, we're going to throw it back a little bit to the 80s. I read Unfinished Symphony by V.C. Andrews. This is the 3rd book in the Logan series, the spellbinding Logan family series. In the previous 2 books, we have Melody Logan, who is featured here on the cover. Her mom has basically abandoned her to go chase dreams of being a star, and she left her with some relatives in Cape Cod. And she fell in love with who she finds out is actually her 3rd cousin. So in this book, there was a lot to wrap up. It's not very long. It's about the average length of a V.C. Andrews book. But the whole, 50% of this book is Melody chasing this lead that she thinks she found her mother still alive, she previously thought dead, in Hollywood. So it's her kind of adapting to Hollywood, and it was really boring, and I hated it. Not gonna lie. The second half ended up being tying up loose ends and uncovering mysteries that have yet to be uncovered. Normally, V.C. Andrews has 4 books with the heroine, or 3 books with the heroine, and the 4th book being about their child, the 5th book being a prequel. She did not do that in this case. This is the last book with Melody. The next book is actually a prequel. I ended up giving this book 3 stars because there was so much stuff that she had to reveal, and it didn't happen. For those who don't know, V.C. Andrews actually only wrote like 4 or 5 of these books on her own. The rest were handled by a ghostwriter based on notes that she left behind or half-written manuscripts. And it was not too obvious, more obvious than in this one. You can really tell, like, the way the Hollywood plot was, like, stretched out, that they were just trying to go off of notes and didn't really have much direction. The characterizations of everybody was kind of all over the place. Melody, in particular, was really naive in this one, and it didn't feel as natural as the other two, and I didn't enjoy this one as much. So this one was only 3 stars. Another throwback read was Where the Red Fern Grows. This is by Wilson Fowles. This is the kind of book that everybody read in elementary school, but I somehow missed it. I did know spoiler. Seriously, spoiler alert, just go to the end of this chunk if you don't want to hear. But I did know, spoiler, that both the dogs died in the end. So, I mean, the whole time I was reading it, I was just wondering, like, when the dogs were going to die and how it related to the red fern. So this book is about a boy that wants to be this good coon hunter. So he saves up a bunch of money to buy his own dogs. He gets 2 red hounds. I believe they're red hounds. Yeah, hounds. And they actually do become, like, the best hunting dogs in their valley. He's very poor. So they enter this hunting competition. They do really well. There was, like, a lot of actually discussion on faith and God in this. I don't think people talk about enough. And that was actually really surprising. Like, there's a couple times the boy's name is Billy. There's a couple times that he actually gets on his knees and prays, and then God actually comes through with him with these apparent miracles. So I thought it was really interesting, especially in a children's book that's read so widely in school, that was such a big part of it, especially because it's not talked about a lot. And there's actually also a murder in here. Like, there's a young boy that gets murdered, and that, again, is not talked about a lot, so I thought that was interesting as well. The whole title of the book is this huge metaphor at the end where when he buries his dogs, a red fern grows over their grave, and it's supposed to be like some kind of Native American symbolism, which was really deep, again. And it was very sad, but I'm glad I did read it. I'm sad I didn't read this as a kid, but I am glad I read it as an adult, so I think I can appreciate it a little bit more now. But it was also a 4-star read. The next book that I read this month was The Phantom of the Opera, Muppets Meet the Classics Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux and Eric Forrest Jackson. So, much as the title and the cover suggests, this is a retelling of the novel The Phantom of the Opera with the Muppets. We have Kermit over here as Raoul, the Vicomte de Chagny, or Kermit de Chagny, Piggy Dye, and Uncle Dudley as the Phantom. This book was bizarre. Like, I did end up really liking it. I'm a huge Phantom of the Opera fan. The Phantom of the Opera book is a little bit hard to get through just because it's really dry. This was, I followed, like I said, the plot almost exactly. All your favorite Muppets are in here. They're all playing, like, all the lead parts. Some of the lesser known ones are in there as well, like Mama Fiamma, Johnny Fiamma, Janice plays Sorelli. Rizzo actually has a really small part. Beaker dies in this. I think it'd be a neat introduction to Phantom of the Opera for children. Yeah, I mean, there was a couple surprises along the way. I really fell for Uncle Dudley's Phantom. I think was really convincing. It still really drove home that theme of somebody wanting to fit in a world where he doesn't base on his appearances. They didn't shy away from that theme. They kind of stayed really true to that kind of story while still peppering in, like, modern references. Like, there's a statue of Ariana Grande on the rooftop instead of, like, the Lear statue. It was just, I don't know, really well done. Instead of being the angel of music, it's the Kuzi Bainin, like some kind of alien of music. He has a carnival under the opera, and his, like, Labyrinth is just a carnival ride. The Muppets all stayed true to their character and also portrayed the Phantom of the Opera characters very well. It does really work, so good job, Eric Forrest Jackson. If you're a fan of Phantom of the Opera, fan of the Muppets, or you want to introduce your child to Phantom of the Opera, I definitely recommend this one. The next read is going to be a little bit difficult to talk about. I'm probably going to end up doing a separate video review on it eventually, because I just have a lot of thoughts. But I did read, I read Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. I'm pretty sure everybody and their mother read this book. So this is the 5th Twilight book, and it's actually the first book Twilight told through Edward's point of view. So we all know 12 years ago, the first 12 chapters leaked, and we were all super excited. But as an adult picking this up and reading, it was a totally different experience. At first, I was kind of happy, and I originally gave it 4 stars, but looking back, I've changed my rating down to 2 stars, because I really just didn't enjoy it that much now that I'm thinking back on it. It is very long. It took me a little over a week to read it, and that's just not acceptable for a Twilight book. I mean, honestly. Edward is a vampire, so he doesn't sleep at all, and there's no time lapse in this book. Every minute of every day is accounted for, and Edward's doing something. And honestly, I just didn't care to be inside of his head. I don't know if it's just because it took her so long to write this that she just forgot her characterization, but he felt very out of character. And this felt very much like a fan fiction and not like an original work from her. And I know everyone shits on Stephanie Meyer, so I'm trying to be fair, but this just wasn't good. Edward didn't have very much original thoughts. He was very one-dimensional and very boring. And it wasn't as interesting, intriguing, or as refreshing as Twilight was. So, that's really all I have to say about it for right now. And like I said, I'll probably, maybe, not probably, maybe, I might do a longer full review on just this book because, thoughts. Let me know what you think about it. And we'll see about doing a full review because I don't really want to give this book too much time because I just didn't like it. And now we're down to our last books, and they're actually library books that I finished right before the end of the month, so I didn't have to, paste them in. So first we have The Jackal by J.R. Ward. This is another really anticipated release for me, except for I have all of her books in paperback, so I usually just wait till they come out in paperback to buy them, but I still want to read them and be part of the fandom. So this is actually the first book in the prison camp spinoff from her main Black Dagger Brotherhood series. I know I've talked about Black Dagger Brotherhood before, so this one actually can work as a standalone. There is some cameos from characters from the original series, but there's enough new characters here and new plot that it kind of works as a standalone. So the Jackal right here is our main character. And also the female Nyx. She breaks into this underground prison to try to find out what happened to her sister and possibly release her, who's been thrown in there under false charges. Along the way, she meets the Jackal, who is like, girl, what are you doing? This is a scary bad prison. And she just uncovers that there's a lot of deceit and wrongdoing happening in this prison, which makes her more than determined than ever to break her sister out. This isn't really too much of a plot-driven book, because literally the whole plot is her breaking into the prison and then having to get out of the prison, and falling in love with the Jackal along the way, because J.R. Ward breaks romance. It is a vampire book, and it's a lot more character than anything. There's a lot of characters, new characters. Some of the old ones that we know from the Brotherhood make appearances in here. But it's a very character-driven story, and I thought it was just really well put together, especially when I had very low expectations for this one. She does plan on continuing the prison camp series, so I'm interested to revisit some of these characters and see what more they have to offer. But I really do recommend this one. I gave this one 4 stars. The last book I read this month is Volume 1 of Pokemon Adventures. Now, I said in my last month video that I wasn't going to do individual entries of manga. I was just going to do the whole series. But I literally only read this first book this month, so I didn't think it was fair. And I wanted it to count towards my total reads. So Pokemon Adventures is a manga series that follows closely to the games. Because it originated in Japan, this one follows Red, Blue, and, Green was released in Japan and not in America. But our main character here is Red. He starts off with a Poliwhirl. He ends up finding this other trainer in the woods who's chasing after a Mew. And it prompts Red to go visit Professor Oak, where he obtains a Bulbasaur. So this boy in the woods ends up being Blue, who Red decides is his adversary. And by the end of this volume, he meets, he doesn't I already started volume 2, so I'm getting it mixed up. But he does run into Team Rocket along the way, and they also become adversaries as they are trying to chase down Mew, and he's not sure why. Red makes it his mission now that he's a Pokedex to collect all the Pokemon he can, and that is his main goal. He does get 2 badges in this one, from Pewter City Brock and Cerulean City Misty. Red's kind of fun. The artwork in this is like chibi. Oh, the story is by Hidenori Kusaka, and the art is by Meito. The art is adorable. I love it. The only issue I'm having with this is it doesn't seem to be an overarching plot. It's just like Red's little mini adventures, and it's, again, very similar to the game. Like, he sneaks into the SS Anne, he ends up running into the Pokemon fan club, Mr. Fuji, you know, the huge. And this volume ends with the infamous zombie Pokemon that people always talk about when they talk about this series. It was really quick. It was in Lavender Town, and there is an Arbok that gets cut in half by Charmeleon, and I'm going to zoom on that really quick. So yeah, Arbok gets cut in half. It's all pretty graphic, but it's cute. I think it's a pretty decent introduction to manga for a younger audience, especially Pokemon fans. It is rated A for all ages. There's no bad language, and other than that, Charmeleon cutting Arbok in half, it's not very graphic in other senses either. But it's cute. I gave it 3.5 stars because it's kind of fun, but I need a little bit more meat to the story. And I'm pretty sure later volumes in this series do give me that, so there's that. And that was it for the month, guys. I was a little bit more decent than I thought. And now that we're back to work, we'll see what this next month holds. So as always, I hope you guys are doing well, staying safe, staying healthy, and we'll see you next month. Happy reading!